This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jasperson.
All right, well, it's kind of the job of any show, any show that you trust, any show that's a regular part of your life, and we're grateful for that, to help you stay on top of things. And so I cannot help you with, when your kid's next field trip is, or that form you have to sign, or that assignment you're totally forgetting at work, or your upcoming anniversary. However, here on Real Talk, we can let you know we are 1 day away from Halloween. We are 6 days away from the American election.
But even scarier.
Membered, nice play.
Very spooky.
Membered Alberta Conservatives, card-carrying members of the United Conservative Party, are just a few days away from their party's AGM, the annual general meeting in Red Deer, which is expected to draw, they're saying, between 6,000 and 7,000 people.
Draw or
Danielle
bus in?
Smith's leadership review. Another question. There's a lot going on, and so on this episode of the show, we've got you covered as a list of Liberal MPs grows. One of their MPs who's not seeking re-election telling reporters, we're going to bring this to you in just a sec, Ken McDonald, that more than 20 of them have called for the Prime Minister to step down. We're going to get to that story. And Johnny, of interest, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, and I always remind you, whatever you hear on this show, get your own independent advice. Talk to your own financial advisors. Don't ever take financial advice from me. But those that are interested in Bitcoin, this week, all they can talk about is the fact that Bitcoin is at an all-time high. And as of the time we're talking, and it always changes and it's always in flux. But as of right now, Bitcoin is at $100,469.66 Canadian. Check this out on my screen, and you can see where this has been just year over year. Bitcoin. I'm not sharing my screen with you right now, am I? that was very kind of you to say. Jespo. Yeah, let's see your screen.
It's live TV.
Hey,
here we go.
We would love to see your screen. Yeah, check this out. And of course this. Now Bitcoin's of course very volatile. It's extremely volatile. If you're looking, and this is not a financial advice segment. This is just us shooting the shit. If you're looking for something steady Eddie to put your retirement on, your nest egg, you're on a fixed income, get your own advice. Again, don't listen to me, but I'm just saying, the volatility here. So what we're showing you here is year over year, okay? So a year ago, on November 1st of 2023, Bitcoin was at 49,000 Canadian. Okay, 49,000.
Well, I remember when it was at like 24,000.
And everybody was chirping. Yeah. I remember when it was at $250. But by the time that March of 2024 hit, it had jumped to about 97,000. Wild. And then again, it was back down to like 75 grand beginning of the summer, July 8th, just after our Real Talk Golf Classic. And then it's kind of been in and around, between sort of 75 and 90 grand. Well, boom, it is rallying again at right now. Yesterday, hours before we're recording, this $101,132 Canadian. So it's just something wild that people are keeping an eye on. And it kind of factors into some people's reality. And for others, some folks just aren't sold. And that's cool too. The reason why I'm leading with it is because I want to remind the senior finance professionals and finance advisors that are tuning into this show about something that Business Career College is offering. And before we officially kick off the show, I want to let you know that BCC is presenting this episode and wanting to make sure that you are aware of their new designation. This is the CDAA, the Certified Digital Asset Advisor. So whether or not you're into Bitcoin, your clients may be. And if you're advising them, you're going to want to at least be able to give them informed advice. You're going to at least tell them what you think and what you'd advise them to do. This new generation of investors, 3/4 of them tell pollsters they're interested in decentralized finance, which means things like crypto assets, Bitcoin, the blockchain, NFTs. The CDAA sets you up to speak with credibility, and of course, Business Career College been doing finance and financial education since 1997. So they've got a great track record there. The promo code Ryan20 on setup when you're getting registered at businesscareercollege.com will knock 20% off the investment you're making in your career. That's Ryan20, all one word, when you sign up for the Certified Digital Asset Advisor designation at businesscareercollege.com.
And I think we were talking about this the other day. So the only problem I see left with Bitcoin, because obviously it looks viable, is until banks and major establishments like when you can finally go buy a house with Bitcoin, because you can't do stuff like that right now,
Yeah,
right? You can't go buy a car with Bitcoin. You can't go. Well, maybe
you can.
in
I mean,
certain
yeah,
places,
for
but
sure.
You know what I mean? It still has that stigma over it. So.
Yeah, there's in our home city of Edmonton. I don't know if you saw this, but Remedy Cafe.
Of course,
there's a bit of a
I love
regional
Remedy
reference, but it's
Cafe.
kind of an interesting one. So Z, who's the founder and the owner of Remedy Cafe, has just put his locations up for sale. Mm-hmm. I think I saw the price. I think the price tag on it was like $12 million for a few locations. So good for him, and we wish him well. Remedy has just been this wonderful spot. It's like big enough that everybody knows what it is, but still small enough that like their chai is still like as magnificent as it was the day that they opened, and they've got such great lunch options and things like that. Anyway, the reason I mention it is because Z was one of the first business owners that I can remember, and this is like years ago, that was accepting Bitcoin at the till. This is like it was sort of like a standard part of his practice. It was like a regular thing, and they would have like a Bitcoin ATM in the shop, and it was like very forward thinking at the time. I still think it's still forward thinking.
Yeah.
For shops and entities, restaurants. I mean, Kubi Energy, one of our incredible partners here on the show, they accept Bitcoin, and I said to him, I hope this isn't like proprietary private information. I'll buy him lunch if it is.
Give it up.
But I asked Jake Kubisky, the CEO, who's been on the show before, I said, like, what percentage of your customers take advantage of that? Like, what percentage of the jobs, of the installs you do are paid for in Bitcoin? He goes, less than 1%.
Oh, wow.
But if you look at, like, the amount of commerce that they're doing, if you look at the amount of installs that they're doing, if they do thousands through the year, 1% is still not nothing. It'll be interesting to see. Like for a lot of people, Bitcoin. I haven't even looked in the live chat. I can only imagine what some people are saying about Bitcoin. And there are others that I bet a year ago that got like their income tax refund, or maybe like a windfall from grandma or something like that, a bonus at work, that got like even like $5-10 grand, which isn't nothing. And went like, I'm just gonna throw it. I'm just gonna. I just want to check. I just want to be part of it. I want to be able to follow with interest. It's like being in a hockey pool. Yeah. Makes the games more interesting. Somebody that would have bought 5,000 in Bitcoin a year ago is looking at 10,000 now. Now you can't promise the returns. Nothing's guaranteed. It could be zero. But it's just interesting.
It's looking good. And like you just said, I saw, I'll say another name. It's one of our favorite pizza places right a block from here, Cosmic Pizza.
We better get free pizza.
They've got a Bitcoin transfer.
Do they really?
So the last time I went in there, it wasn't working. They said it was getting serviced or whatever. But you can put cash in it. It'll convert it to Bitcoin, give you an account, and it's just crazy. And also, when I say it's not viable, you could still cash in your Bitcoin and go buy a house. It's not like you're stuck with it. But I'm saying until Bitcoin is viewed like cash, it still kind of has this asterisk on it. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, like it's hugely volatile. We had probably the most fun conversation we've had in the past year on Bitcoin was when the strategists last joined us, Corey, Steven, and Zane, and Corey and I kind of got into it. Well, and they were poking fun because our title sponsor at launch for Real Talk for like the first year and a half was Bitcoin Well. Yeah. And I'm pals with their founding CEO, and Adam's hilarious. I mean, he's like a Bitcoin evangelist. You either love him or you can't stand him. Yeah. I don't know if you saw and by the way, I love him for the record. I don't know if you saw the feature that was on him in the newspaper the other day about how he bought $100,000 worth of Pokemon cards. Did you see this?
But hey, again, not a bad investment. Pokemon's worth bank.
I gotta find this. So here it is. So I'll credit. This is Ritika Dubey from the Canadian Press that did. What a great last name, Dubey. That wrote this feature, and the headline: Pokemon cards, music royalties, sports memorabilia. Do alternative investments work? So goes the lead. When some rare first edition Pokemon trading cards went on sale 3 years ago, Adam O'Brien, founding CEO of Bitcoin Well, was hit with a wave of nostalgia. For the now 32-year-old, it was an irresistible offer that had the potential for value in the long run. And he goes on to talk about how he bought 3 packs of cards, like unopened, John. 3 packs of cards for $100,000. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Opened them up and found that the cards he had received, like, listen, I don't know anything about
Neither
Pokemon,
do I, but some of them are worth,
the cards he had received exceeded the value that he had paid for the packs. Yeah, so he talks about how he keeps, like, don't get any ideas, anybody. He talks about how he keeps them in a safe. He says he stores them like you'd store gold bars. But, it's got people talking about different investments. Remember, we were talking about that Saskatchewan family that had the box of unopened O-Pee-Chee. Like, we're not talking one case of playing cards. What did they sell it for again? $5 million or something like
ridiculous. That? Between $5 and $7 million they went for, which in the end, I don't know. You open up a bunch of boxes of those, and it was the year it could have been Wayne Gretzky's rookie card in there.
They estimated that there could be up to 25 Wayne Gretzky rookie
which
cards
would have
in the
far
case.
exceeded the 5 million. But still, you're taking a chance opening them all up.
So
right?
$3.72 million US.
Per Wayne Gretzky?
Those sold for.
Oh, okay.
So this is the unopened. People are going, are you guys leading with like Wayne Gretzky O-Peach? This is just, we're catching up on our day just with you.
Can you tell we daydream too, folks?
So this family sold it. So that's over 5 million Canadian. Now here's the hilarious part though. And I don't have the date for you because we're winging it right now. But we had Wayne Wagner on the show, a great friend. He owns Wayne's Sports Cards and Collectibles. And I was picking his brain. This was before the O-Peach cards went up for auction and said, how much do you think they could go for, this, that, and the other? The part that I remember from that interview is he says, here's the thing though. He goes, there could be 25 Gretzky rookie cards in there, but you don't buy something like this and open it.
No.
He says the investment is that it's unopened. I'm sitting there going, are you serious? So somebody's paying $3.72 million US for a box they can't even open. Yeah. It's because they're not treating it as like the nostalgia of the card. It's an investment.
But how many boxes did you have? I would have opened one box maybe. I'm looking up here. OPG's Great One rookie card is $3 million in perfect
if it's
condition.
Mint, yeah, it's a
but
10.
it is mint because the boxes are unopened. So,
well, but that's the thing with
if you get one, you've already made what you were going to make selling the boxes.
To get a little nerdy, though, these cards get graded. I mean,
and then they have to go to auction. And
but just because they've come crisp off the however they print cards or however they printed them in 1979, but they're not guaranteed to be perfect 10s. No. Like cards can be off kilter or the corner can be messed up a little. I mean, there's tiny little differences.
Our guests talk about, I think there was gum in those ones too, which can ruin.
There was the actual
which
gum,
can actually
the
cause,
sticks of gum, which they'd never do now because packs of cards now are like, I mean, even the normal cards are like $8 a pack. Yeah. And if you're looking at Pokemon cards, I guess they're $33,000 a pack. But to bring it all back to Bitcoin, it's for some folks, it's not for others. I saw friends of mine whose opinions I trust. I mean, Chris Labossiere is a name that's well known in the city of Edmonton, and he's the CEO of many different businesses, including our presenting sponsors. So, take it for what it's worth. But like the guy knows money. The guy's one of the smartest people that I know in business, and you can check out I'm sharing my Facebook, my personal Facebook here, but this is what Chris posted yesterday when Bitcoin hit 100 GER, and he says, study this innovation. Bitcoin will be the wealth preservation technology of our new world, and if you don't understand and start accumulating it as savings, you'll eventually be working for it. He says, make it work for your family. So this is just an interesting point. Yeah. I couldn't help but notice my personal text messages yesterday were like all over the place of people. I mean, I use that as a hypothetical. One of my friends says that her sister, it was like an insurance payout or something, whatever it was. But her sister about a year ago came into $15,000, which for most people is a lot of money. And she decided that she wanted to get in on the action here. And right now she's going, woo! Now the question is also, when is enough enough? Yeah. I know that there's a real talker by the name of Chivs down in Calgary who will be listening to this, and he writes in often to the show, and he's like, he's like, accumulate. Yeah. Don't ever sell. But for a lot of other people, like if you got into Bitcoin low and it's now very high, if the investment on your return is like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 times, for a lot of people, that's perfectly enough. Thank you very much. And they're on their way out.
Well, if I had one today, I'd be flipping it for $100,000. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you paid for it, right?
I've seen so many posts this week, like you just shared. All the Bitcoin bros I know are but on my Facebook and Instagram, they are going crazy right now. This is right before Christmas.
This is also what they've been calling, right?
Of course, yeah.
They've been saying, everyone's been saying there's going to be and they've been saying it like for months. They've been going, there's going to be a fall rally. There's going to be it's going to rally in the fall. This is not a political reference. How about this though from Goose? Goose, I feel your buddy's pain, and I've got a buddy the exact same way. He says, my friend likes to joke about the $600 cups of coffee he used to buy with Bitcoin. In other words, when Bitcoin was trading low and he was paying for his coffees with Bitcoin, had he held on to that amount, it would now be worth $600. I've got a friend down in Calgary, won't say his name, did very well on Bitcoin very early and sold some of it to literally pay cash for a house. Okay, my friends in Calgary, you know Lake Bonavista, you know Lake Bonaventure. Okay, this is a beautiful home on a private lake, okay, paid for in cash from Bitcoin sales, bought himself a Tesla as well. And I sit there and I talk to him and I go, gosh, that must be cool. That must be so cool. And he looks at me and he says, pal, I don't even want to tell you what the value of the Bitcoin is now that we sold to buy the house, right? He says it's
But if I had a house from Bitcoin, I'd be pretty happy.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Regardless.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Because that's what I'm worried about. Like if you have all this Bitcoin, but then you can't. But yeah, you can always flip it for cash. But it's still, for me, it's still got that asterisk until you can like trade it, use it for stuff other than Starbucks at $6.
Well, you can transfer. I mean, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised at how people are using Bitcoin these days, especially in countries. By the way, we didn't plan on talking about Bitcoin for 15 minutes, but people in countries that are less than stable, right? Like let's where the economy, the politics. I mean, like for example, the United States. No, but like in other developing parts of the world, where all of a sudden you go, your currency in that country could be devalued overnight, right? The government could topple, the banks could collapse, everything could be a disaster. And if you're trying to get out of that country or flee that country, like many people do, that's the harsh reality around the world. Something like Bitcoin is a way that people can store wealth, transfer wealth, conduct commerce without having to risk some of those things that come along with it. So anyway, it's fascinating. I'm fascinated by it. If you're not into it, that's totally cool too. Lauren says, and I do agree with Lauren in the chat, Lauren Goose says, spending Bitcoin is not a good plan, at least not right now. He says, people don't spend your Bitcoin, don't cash out your Bitcoin, it's going up. That's what Lauren's wagering on. We're not offering you financial advice. We're just, I just think it's kind of an interesting story. And anytime something hits that sort of mile mark, like how we're just shy, this is just a little nudge to you, Real Talkers, just how we're just shy of 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you can help us get to 20,000. That's such a nice round number. I just thought 100,000 Canadians, kind of an interesting mile mark for Bitcoin. So here we go. The housing market is another interesting one. How about my pal down in Calgary, right? Sells Bitcoin, buys a house. Everybody in Canada, I think, is taking a look at the housing market right now. And if you're not in it, if you're renting, if you're trying to get into the housing market, you're wondering how on earth you're going to do it. And if you're a Canadian family that's, quite frankly, doing everything you can, you're busting your ass to make ends meet, but the rent costs are going up, you feel like you got to pay to play and you can barely manage it. You know that this is probably going to be the top election issue. When Justin Trudeau tries to remain prime minister, Pierre Poilievre tries to take the crown, we expect next fall, could be sooner, right? Well, yesterday, hours before we're doing this show in the House of Commons, a remarkable exchange. And I want to play it, Johnny, in its entirety.
Sure.
Okay? Because I think that this is worth listening to. So you're about to hear from Pierre Poilievre and the federal housing minister, Sean Fraser. He's been on this show before. As an aside, after Minister Fraser was on this show, we got notes from a few of you. A couple of you saying, listen, we're not liberals. We don't support the federal liberals. But, that guy could be the next liberal leader. I think he made an impression on some of you. You're about to hear for yourself why that may be a remarkable exchange, a fiery exchange prompted by a liberal housing proposal. You'll note as well that the Conservatives are talking about axing the tax on home sales. Big deal too. Both parties trying to get Canadians' attention on their plan to help ease Canada's housing crunch. But check this out.
Mr. Speaker, the very angry housing minister has been up all night trying to dream up some snarky comment in response to the very popular announcement Common Sense Conservatives made yesterday to axe the federal sales tax on homes under $1 million. Something that his own advisor, Dr. Mike Moffat, has said is the most bold announcement of any federal party for middle-class home ownership. He took my idea on GST for rental housing. Will he accept this common sense plan to axe the tax?
Mr. Speaker, with all the time and energy he spends on me, I'm going to have to send him a check for the time I've been living rent-free in his head. But look, I got to tell you, yesterday, make no mistake, the Conservative leader announced he would make multi-billion-dollar cuts to programs that will get homes built in this country. Now, he knows that, and we can agree on that piece. What he doesn't know is his caucus colleagues have been going behind his back, writing me letters advocating for their communities to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund because they believe it will get more homes built. My question for the Conservative members of his caucus, will they have the courage to stand up and tell him he's wrong?
It's the only rent he hasn't doubled. And nobody else has to tell that member that he's wrong because he told himself. This is what he said about his own Housing Accelerator Fund. Let me quote it. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually go towards the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually directly build homes. And he's right. Since he started forking over these big checks, construction has gone down in the major municipalities that has received it. So will he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the home?
There was a time not so long ago when the Conservative leader was actually advocating the government do more to increase density near the services that people need, where infrastructure already exists. There was a time when he was actually advocating to do something to reduce development cost charges to make it cheaper to build homes in this country. There was a time he was advocating the government do something to actually speed up the process of permitting. Now that we've actually moved forward with billions of dollars of investments that are getting homes built, making changes, he's changed his view and says we should do nothing on any of these programs and blames the government for making the investments he once thought was a good idea. We're going to do what it takes to build homes. I wish he'd join us.
Opposite. Since he gave Toronto $500 million, that city hall has jacked up development taxes by 40%. No wonder construction is down 20%. That's probably why Dr. Mike Moffat, the minister's housing advisor, said that it's hard to deny that the Housing Accelerator Fund is turning out to be nothing more than a heist of tax dollars flowing from the feds to the municipality. Wow. So enough with the heists. Won't he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the home?
Yay! Mr. Speaker, I sometimes ask myself where they found this guy. He twists the facts to suit his narrative whenever he wants. It's almost like the Conservative Party, when looking for a new leader, hopped on Temu, typed in far-right Conservative, and then spit this guy out instead. He opposes investments in affordable housing. He borrows lessons from his cousin south of the border when he opposes birth control for women. During the January 6th of Canada, the convoy, he wasn't just telling people to stand by, he was bringing them coffee in the streets. Mr. Speaker, it might be election season in America. We don't need this far right-wing populism here at home.
Speaking of leadership contestants, that member must be so uptight and angry because the polling shows that though Canadians want to fire that Prime Minister, the Housing Minister ranks dead last in the polls to replace him. And why wouldn't he? This is the guy who lost track of 1 million people when he was Immigration Minister. Right. He ignored warnings from his own department that letting in 200% more people would cause a housing shortage. And his own government spent the last week trashing his entire immigration record. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man? Yeah!
The Conservative leader asks how arrogance and incompetence can live so comfortably in one man. He manages to show us every single day. Mr. Speaker, let's actually look at the facts. While he's concerned about my polling numbers, I'm concerned about helping people in need. We put billions of dollars on the table to build or repair hundreds of thousands of homes in this country so vulnerable Canadians have a roof over his head. Let's look at his record. The worst level of home building in the last 10 years. And when he had the chance to help the most vulnerable, he simply got 6 units built across the entire country. The only thing he's done to help vulnerable people is show up with a video camera to treat those living without a roof over their head as props, and it's unacceptable.
The sum total of the chaos in our immigration system that happened under this government happened while he was the minister. His own subsequent Liberal successor has now denounced him and blamed him and his policies for the housing shortfall we have today. And now as housing minister, since he took office, the number of young people who own a home has gone from 47% down to 26% as he builds bureaucracy to block homes. Why doesn't he realize his failure, accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the home?
All right. So there you have it. Right?
It's a boxing match.
And you see, so we're
Back
looking
and
at
forth,
this.
jab.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, we could cut this down to 30 seconds or 45 seconds, but, like, they were at each other on Tuesday. And I just, like, number one, the comment about living rent-free in his head, which, was pretty great. And then Poilievre coming back with that's the only rent you haven't doubled, which I thought was, like, incredible response. Like, and by the way, I see you, Erica, in the live chat. Erica says that whole rent-free in the head thing is a little cringy now. It's kind of like being like, maybe a little bit. So Erica, we hear you on that. Michael says the slogans are just getting boring at this point, but I will say this. It would be a shame if Canadians didn't get to see more of that. Like from start to finish, that was highly entertaining. They're landing jabs. Now the question is, does it do anything to help Canadians that are impacted by the housing crunch? I don't know. This is a lot of theater. Tony in our live chat says they've got nothing. I think it was Tony on British Parliament says this is absolutely nothing compared to what the Brits get to watch.
Sure.
But still, I thought it was pretty remarkable. And you could see how these two could have a bright future butting heads.
Of course. And you can see their stripes. They're both wearing their hearts on their sleeves. What I worry about is if it gets to the level of what's going on in the States where, like, you notice there, nobody called anyone a Nazi or nobody said the word, woke communist. That's what I want to see. If you're going to go back and forth, if you're going to exchange jabs while debating a specific issue and still be semi-respectful, let's be honest, they were still dropping bombs. I'm all for that. I'll watch that all day.
Although I do think a Timu version of a right-wing leader is pretty close.
It's the line, right?
That is like, if we're not going to cross the line, your toe is like right off the line on that one. The Timu version of a right-wing leader was.
But they let each other speak for once. Like the House is just people yelling all the time. This was like back and forth, it was like a ping pong match. It was great.
Yeah. Sylvia says, as Poilievre makes money on renting properties, I know people have talked about how his wife has a problem. But hey, listen, also, like, fair, it's not illegal. Like, it's free market, yada, 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 whatever. Fill in the blanks. We could debate that over coffee sometime. Justin says, politics should not be entertaining, in quotes. Who cares? Justin, to a certain degree, I agree with you. We're not hiring them to be entertainers. And like I said to Johnny, ultimately what you hope comes out of this is like progress on policy for Canadians that helps people that are absolutely being squeezed right now, right? People that didn't see their investments double in the last year, people that are trying to keep up and get a down payment ready so their family can pick up a starter home and they just can't compete with where the market's going. I get it 100%. But I do think that stuff like this at least puts it on people's radar, right? It generates interest. So much of politics happens in back rooms and in halls of power, and people don't know what's going on. And that's arguably a bigger problem, right? When it's not on people's radar. And stuff like this, I think, just reminds people what's going on and also makes talk shows a little bit more interesting.
And that's number one. Number two, do you not want your politicians to be passionate? I want to see the passion with a level of respect and politeness. And I thought this, even though it was dropping bombs back and forth, was a breath of fresh air to what's been going on, to the name calling, to the trying to get God on, conspiracy theories or things that we can't prove, or saying things, this person may have done this, but I have no way. Like, I want to see people beat each other up back and forth with facts, but also be passionate. I want my politicians to be passionate about the issues, but at the same time, Get right to that line, but don't cross it.
Yeah. Justin follows up on his comment, says, I don't see any progress being made, Jespo. I just see the, quote, middle class, and that's a fair use of quotes because what even is the middle class? That's one of my favorite questions ever asked Trudeau, not on Real Talk, on my previous radio show. I said, define the middle class by income, by jurisdiction. And he was like, no politician wants to do it. But anyway, he says, Justin does, I just see the middle class being used as political footballs. None of what we just saw is moving things forward. The middle class is the most appealing political football out there, right? Every party leader, like all three of the main party leaders in Canada right now, Singh, Poilievre, and Trudeau, are all campaigning to the middle class. Right? I mean, you look at the Liberals, I mean, I think of like one policy off the top of my head over the past year, the increase in the capital gains tax, right? That's taking a risk on the high income earners, on losing support there. Why? To gain favor optically and otherwise with the quote-unquote middle class. Pierre Poilievre, his, quote, common sense plan, talking about axing the tax, carbon taxes, home buying taxes, all of the, who's he aiming at? He's aiming at the middle class, right? And same deal with Jagmeet Singh, who I think is having a bit of a tougher time getting on people's radar. By the way, he may be coming up on an upcoming episode of Real Talk. Could be a good conversation. We'll let you know well ahead of time if Jagmeet Singh is going to join us, and of course, we'd love your questions for that. I do see, obviously, in our live chat, and you heard it from Pierre Poilievre, a reference to Sean Fraser's time as immigration minister, and the Trudeau Liberals have, quite frankly, had no choice but to acknowledge that Canada probably does need to rethink immigration policy, and the Prime Minister did go on the record just a short time ago on exactly that.
Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years. We need others to step up and do their part too. Far too many corporations have chosen to abuse our temporary measures, exploiting foreign workers while refusing to hire Canadians for a fair wage. All while, under the watch of provinces, some colleges and universities are bringing in more international students than communities can accommodate, treating them as an expendable means to line their own pockets. That's unacceptable, and it needs to change.
So that's the Prime Minister acknowledging that this is an issue that's on Canadians' radar. It reminds me of an interesting conversation that we had on the show about 6 weeks ago with President and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, Shauna Feth, talking about immigration policy and how, number one, immigration is key to the survival of a lot of Canadian post-secondaries. The international students, the tuition, I think everybody's aware that they're paying is significantly higher than what Canadian students would be paying at Canadian colleges and universities. Oh, yeah. So that's a big factor. And then another big factor is staffing for a lot of businesses that are whether it's temporary foreign workers, whether it's permanent residents, whatever. And that includes staffing in things like healthcare, like pretty major fields, pretty high profile ministries, where immigration's got to be a big part of it. But at the same time, when we talked to Sean Fraser on the show, people can check our archives on YouTube and on the podcast. We asked him about that too. Like, what role does the federal government acknowledge or believe that immigration has contributed to? And it could be immigration. We could be talking about refugees. We could be talking about Canada's participation in welcoming, thousands of displaced people from crises around the world, including Ukraine and Syria and elsewhere. But what role has that played in the housing crunch and in some of the economic struggles? And people can check out our interview with him if they want to get his full answer on that. I see a ton of you chiming in on the chat, and we appreciate that. Want to get to more of your comments, those of you that are joining us live. Most of you join us later in the day. And if that's the case, number one, you got to get us live on the Mixler audio app presented by California Closets or on YouTube, because you can contribute to that conversation. But another great way to do it is by sending us an email anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We try to get to an email at least once a show as best we can. And sometimes it's the ones behind the scenes we get. We just got a remarkable email yesterday, oh my gosh, from a blue chip source, Johnny. I'm going to work hard to get this guy on the show, though. I'm not reading his email. I want to get him. He was nailed to the cross in a high profile story in Western Canada within the last 3 years, and I can't believe I was thrilled to understand and learn that he listens to the show, and his email yesterday blew my mind. So that's a little teaser for you. Hopefully we're going to get this guy on the record coming up. Before we get back to politics, I want to talk about this list. 20 Liberal MPs have signed a letter, put their names on it, asking for the Prime Minister to step down as Liberal leader. Ken McDonald, one of the Liberal MPs that has already announced he's not seeking re-election, stepped in front of cameras to say just as much the other day. And we've got some updates as well on other federal political stories, provincial political stories developing. What an episode yesterday with Max Fawcett. As we now know what the landscape looks like in BC, they finally have clarity almost 10 days after they voted. In Saskatchewan, Scott Moe survives just barely. We've got maybe not a snap election call, but an early election call in Nova Scotia, and then a big weekend, as mentioned, coming up here in Alberta. We've got you covered In this episode of Real Talk, it is Wednesday, and every Wednesday, courtesy of our amazing friends at Tourism Jasper, we have a chance to kind of all of us just head out to the mountains for a second and understand sometimes what's happening this coming week, this coming month, as we all look to make our own Jasper memories. My Jasper Memories, proudly presented by Tourism Jasper, and there's a couple of things happening right now that I want to tell you about, including the Run for Jasper. This is coming up. You got about a month's time to make plans and to register for this. It's coming up on the 30th of November after several years of hosting the Pints and Pinot Run. Have you heard about this one? Pints and Pinot. I can get on board with that. Multi-Sports Canada, and I'm showing it on my screen right now, has decided to rebrand it to the Rebuild Jasper Run. I love this. They want to bring awareness and support to the community of Jasper, obviously following that terrible wildfire in July. They've been hosting events in Jasper since 2016, and they're super grateful for the support that they've seen over the years from the community, and they're hoping that you'll consider joining them this year to help raise funds for the Jasper Community Team Society and the Jasper Volunteer Fire Brigade. They do just unbelievable work. The race is a great way to kickstart your holiday season with an unforgettable trip through the heart of Jasper on foot. It's more than just a run, a chance to embrace the festive spirit and support the rebuild of this beloved community. So whether you're a seasoned athlete or maybe you're new to the running scene, the Rebuild Jasper Run offers something for everybody. You can lace up, feel the energy of the season, and join in supporting the community and rebuilding Jasper. They're going to start and finish the race on the Pyramid Lake Road, adjacent to the Jasper Activity Center, and it's going to be super beautiful. That's coming up November 30th, and you can check out the show notes for details on how you can sign up. And there's also something very cool going on, John, our friends at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. And I know for a lot of people, you've been looking for a reason to get out there, and this is your prompt, all right? They're offering a Together Again incentive, and you can find the details online. We'll link to it in our show notes as well. But this is basically an exclusive culinary event, okay? And this is taking part November 8th to the 11th. So you got like a short time to make up your mind on this and get tickets, because this is definitely going to sell out. It's an intimate gathering celebrating Jasper's spirit and resilience. Together Again, a stellar lineup of renowned chefs and culinary experts, including Anna and Michael Olson, Michael Allmeyer, and others, other notable resort ambassadors. So rates start at $14.99 per person based on double occupancy. That includes 3 nights accommodation, all of your meals and beverages, John.
What?
And there are no asterisks.
Uh-oh.
It's not like this gives you like the water with the cucumbers in it.
Now, hold on, I'm signing up.
This
right now.
covers all.
Gotta
I think
sign
we
up.
can write this off if we go together.
This is amazing.
It covers all of your beverages for the entire weekend, plus interactive cooking classes and tastings and a farewell brunch. So there's a very limited number of tickets available at this price point, but it is a personalized experience in the breathtaking setting of the Canadian Rockies, and you're going to enjoy that intimate atmosphere that will allow for meaningful connections with culinary experts and your fellow guests. Reservations are now open. For more information to secure your spot, check out the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge website. We'll link to it in the show notes. That is Together Again, coming up November 8th to the 11th at the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. My Jasper Memories is proudly presented weekly on Wednesdays right here on Real Talk by our friends at Tourism Jasper. You can check out their website at jasper.travel.
That's, wow.
I'm always curious.
All your food and drinks?
I'm always curious. Like,
Don't tell me that.
I know. Like, it's almost like, I almost feel like it should more be a surprise at the end, where they say, oh, by the way, your drinks were on us, and everybody says thank you. If you go into it knowing that your drinks are covered, for some people that could be the starry night.
I don't want to take advantage, but that sounds a little too good to be true.
But it's not, baby. It's not. November 8th to the 11th. Ken McDonald, Liberal MP, has announced that he's not seeking re-election. And, he's not shy either about what he thinks should happen with his party. He stepped in front of reporters the day before we're doing this show to basically spill the beans on a letter that's been signed by him and about 20 of his colleagues calling for their boss to step down. Check this out.
Nervous because of the polling that's been constantly going down in favor of Liberals, and there's a lot of people who do want to run again. I'm not running again, although I've already told Prime Minister that. But there are people there that want to run again, and they're nervous because of what polls are saying.
So you signed that letter. How many other people have signed it?
I don't know. I didn't see. When I signed it on top of a clean page. I don't know what other signatures were.
How many are you? You don't know, but 20, 40, 50?
I would say it's around 20 plus.
What can you do more than that?
We'll wait and see how the Prime Minister responds to our ask today.
Will you call for a secret ballot on confidence on the Prime Minister? Is that some of the... No, you won't.
What do you want to say to the Prime Minister this morning?
But he has to start listening to the people.
What does it mean?
Well, it means that if you're listening to the people and reacting to what they're saying, you may go up in the polls. If you're doing something that the people in the public think is not what you should be doing, you're going to go down in the polls.
Such as what?
Does that mean resigning?
Who?
Listening to the people means resigning?
No, I don't think it means resigning.
What does it mean?
It means that people, you have to try and get people back on side. Politics is up and down every different day. You do a poll this week, might be different than a poll next week. So the poll is telling you what is being heard or mentioned out in the public. That's what you got to listen to. I listen to my constituents.
He's been trying to do that. Nothing was working.
Well, that's the other side.
A reprieve from the car.
So this is like, as I'm listening to this interview, I'm going, there's a couple of things happening there. Number one, he says, based on the polling, right, which obviously everybody knows, and if you're a regular to this show or any political show, you know that the polling's been really grim for the federal Liberals for a long time. And he says, so if you listen to the polling, you got to recognize that it's basically time for change. He says it's time for the Prime Minister to listen to the people. It's time, so that's why I signed this letter. Also think the insight is interesting behind the scenes. He says, I signed a clean sheet of paper.
You were the first.
They're not, well, either the first or they bring a clean sheet to everybody because they're not showing. So these MPs are kind of sticking their neck out there in a way. I mean, obviously they're calling each other and figuring it out, but like they don't necessarily know who signed. But my point is, he's going, based on the polls, basically, you got to listen to us, and we're all signing this letter. And now he's speaking publicly to reporters, like here's what we think. Like he's now there's dissension in the ranks. Like this is not a caucus meeting behind closed doors. No, he's now going public and talking about this. But then at the end, the reporter goes, so resign. He goes, no, I don't think it means resign. I go, what?
And then he says polls change every week.
And then he says polls change every week.
You just said the polls are telling you.
So what are you even doing? I think it, but it's a story nonetheless.
Yeah.
If it is indeed true, and I bet it is, that there's a growing faction. And of course, make no mistake, they're worried about their own political careers. Right? They're worried about what they're going to do next.
Well,
right?
he doesn't want to go all in on camera and be the first. No. That's basically what happened.
Keep an eye on, I like this, Ms. KD says, that was weak. Yeah, that was weak with a capital W.
It was.
But this also, I mean, it's pretty interesting to see as well. Keep an eye on, I'm always curious to see the veteran MPs, the cabinet ministers that may speak out. That's one thing. Also, keep an eye on the one-term MPs, the ones that have served Canadians for 4 years or less. The federal pension kicks in at 6 years. And so the ones that don't yet have their pension are also going to be interesting ones to keep an eye on, right? Once you've served 6 years, then you're going to be, I won't say high on the hog, but you'll have a nice, you can relax a little bit. You got a pension that you could, However, those ones that are the first-term MPs are also going to be interesting ones to keep an eye on. Kathleen McGee, the political commentator, had something to say about this and this developing trend over the past number of weeks or months. To our good friend Vashi Kapelos on power and politics. I wanted to pull a tiny bit of what Kathleen McGee had to say.
I think there's a truism in politics, and that is that speed kills. And the problem is when you use speed in politics, it can help quash kind of negative attacks. It can help shape the media narrative. It can help define your opponent. And the problem with this kind of mutiny that's been happening with the Liberals is it's been slow motion. Like it's been slow motion. It's been going on for over a year. And the speed
Sounds like the worst breakup I've ever had. Just watching it. I said that to someone the other day. Like, oh my God, when's this thing gonna end?
Exactly. And the speed problem's on both sides, to be clear, right? Like the caucus hasn't moved with any force. There's no clear ultimatum. It just seems like they're going to be sleepwalking into political oblivion, right? And the speed problem is also on that of the Prime Minister. He could have gotten ahead of this 6 months ago. It's stuff that we've been saying on this show and in other places for well over 6 months, that they could come with an action plan and do something. But right now, what is possible for the Liberals? If they go into a Liberal leadership right now, I want to present a couple risks. Like, first of all, they risk a lot of infighting. There's going to be a fight between corporate liberals and more socially progressive liberals. There's also a massive risk, frankly, that there's just no clear alternative. And that is what they face. And that's why I think they've kind of gotten into this sleepwalking area, that they don't know what to do. The caucus coup hasn't been strong enough, and Trudeau hasn't presented a plan, so they are literally just sleepwalking. They're dead party walking, so to speak.
Yeah, and like I think that she kind of dead party walking there. People will say, well,
not wrong.
You can speak that into existence. I mean, this is like a federal government, a minority government nonetheless, but a federal government. But she's right. It says the caucus coup hasn't been strong enough. Like we just heard from Ken McDonald. Like, well, do you want to, like, okay, so you all signed this list. Do you want them gone? Well, not necessarily gone. And like Paul's getting, so what's your plan? I mean, it's like either sort of like stick a fork in it, or get behind him and come up with a plan that can. I mean, you still got. I mean, a year is a long time in politics, right? It appears to be an insurmountable lead that Poilievre has, but again, like someone's going to write into the show today and say, "What the hell are you guys talking about? The only poll that matters is on election day," and you would not be wrong.
That's true, and I've said that on here before. Remember when I said, "Oh, it's 2 years away. It's a year and a half. Now we're a year." I don't know though. Kathleen Monk, I love her. I think she was right on point, which is like the Conservatives don't even have to get up and plan everything day to day. Like Pierre Poilievre gets up, he stretches, he's relaxed.
Yeah.
Because every day there's someone like Ken McDonald coming out and saying stuff, or like KM said, infighting happening behind the scenes and little trickles that we're hearing about. The video we just played, like Trudeau getting up and basically saying, "I fucked up immigration." Like every day is just another thumbs up for Pierre and them. And I'm not on either side. I'm just saying for the Conservatives, they don't even have to plan their days anymore.
You got to, and you got to consider as well, that like a lot of this will certainly impact things like fundraising, which are important, right? And like if donors are sitting there going like, we're not even sure, like is it going to be Trudeau? Like, is it going to be somebody else? Like, we're not even like, are we going to get walloped? Are we going to wind up with like, what was that joke like back in the day? I remember somebody said, like, what does Kim Campbell have in common with a Mazda Miata? 2 seats. Like,
but is it going to be like the
joke?
States where like just like all of a sudden we have another candidate who steps in and they're like, this, we had to do this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Jason, the conservative guy, I love that handle in our live chat, says, he says, you know what, to be honest with you, he says, I hope that the Bloc Québécois votes non-confidence in Trudeau to snap a fall election. The only reason, well, not the only, but one of the reasons why Jason, I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't see that happening is that Yves-François Blanchet, the party leader, has basically said, and this is like almost verbatim. I might get a few words off, but basically verbatim, he said to reporters, if you're asking me if we would rather replace Justin Trudeau with Pierre Poilievre, the answer is no. So every single one of these parties, including the NDP, including the Bloc, is going to be looking at, I mean, those are the two that really matter, isn't it? That are going to be looking at this right now going like, what's better for us? What's better for us? Another year of Trudeau? Like maybe try to get some stuff. Like if you think that Jagmeet Singh is getting pharmacare in under Pierre Poilievre, like it's laughable. And again, this is like completely stupid for me to be talking about election outcomes when there's not even an election.
No.
Somebody right now in our chat said, why is Poilievre campaigning? I mean, I guess it's always a campaign, but it's looking like, and again, we're just speculating, we're just having fun, but it looks like a majority government. It looks like Pierre Poilievre's not going to need any help from anybody.
No, and you think this is campaigning? Ryan, Ken just nailed it right here. The Conservatives have boatloads of money. You haven't seen anything yet. Wait till we get close to the election. You think you're seeing commercials every other commercial break when you're watching the news about Pierre talking about the middle class. Just wait till we're close to election. It's going to be an onslaught. So, like, again, I'm not calling the election. I'm just calling what I see every day when I wake up, and it's bad news. Bad news every day.
We're not the smartest guys in the room, but we're smart enough to know that you never call elections, period.
I'll bring it up. I get a vibe. Every day I wake up, I'm like, man, the Conservatives, they don't even have to plan their day. They just wake up, and it's another bad news story for the Liberals.
Yeah, I'm afraid to use the word vibe right now after being chastised for using it in an interview last week. You remember our conversation about the Calgary Arena deal?
Yeah.
And he says to me,
What was his name?
Do you remember that? It was
Jordan,
Peter Oliver,
Peter Oliver.
from Project Calgary says says to me. He says,
that was a good point.
You don't
though.
make major infrastructure decisions based on vibes. And I thought, well, I think you kind of do in a way. Safety, perceived safety, public parks, it's all vibes, baby. But this is why we are talk show participants and not politicians. Is it worth? I think it's worth playing Poilievre from the podium. This is so he's making an appearance. I mean, whether or not he's campaigning, technically, what is campaigning and what's not? Politicians are always campaigning. It's part of their job survival, right? And he's basically telling Canadians that the Prime Minister is lying to them. So he's here to talk about the Conservative plan to relieve the tax bill on new home purchases, but a reporter in Poilievre get into it. I thought it was interesting stuff.
Okay. You've accused the Prime Minister of lying about having information that members of your party are complicit or otherwise involved in foreign interference. I wondered if you could flesh that out a bit. How do you know he's lying? Have you done anything internally to examine this problem within your party or made any changes?
We told him to release the names, and we know he'd release the names if he had them. This is a Prime Minister who releases information on foreign interference whenever it suits his political purposes. He names names when it serves his purposes. And so we said, we've got nothing to hide, so name the names, Mr. Trudeau. If you've got nothing to hide, then come out, tell us who they are, so that all Canadians can hold them to account. But he hasn't done that, because I think the reality is that it's the Liberals who are compromised. We know that Trudeau was aware that in 2 subsequent elections, Beijing interfered to help him win. He had that information on his desk. He did nothing with it. He knew he had MPs in his caucus that were compromised. He didn't do anything about that until he was caught. So we can't trust anything Justin Trudeau says on foreign interference or anything else. And frankly, this is a man who has a track record of lying about basically everything. He lied when he said he didn't interfere and pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould on removing charges for SNC-Lavalin. He lied when he said the carbon tax would be capped at 11 cents a litre. Now we know it's going up to 61 cents a litre. He lied when he said his deficit would never go above $10 billion. He lies more than he tells the truth, and he's lying in this case as well.
So there you go. Speaking of that interference, that alleged interference, obviously some pretty remarkable testimony this week. Mounties saying that they do have evidence. This is by way of an update, linking a campaign of violence in Canada, including the murder of Mr. Najjar in Surrey, which we've discussed on this show before with Harman Kandola, a campaign of violence in Canada to the highest levels of the Modi government, which is a pretty remarkable bit of testimony. Some of Canada's top security and intelligence officials testifying this week about an alleged campaign to intimidate or kill Canadians. The RCMP commissioner, Mike Duhem, telling David Cochrane, host on the CBC, quote, "We do have strong evidence, not intelligence, but evidence that this goes all the way up to the highest level," which is remarkable. If you didn't catch our October 18th episode of Real Talk, and this story on Indian interference is resonating with you, and you'd like basically a no-holds-barred, informed insight into this, Harman Kandola, a member of the Real Talk editorial board, he's Canadian president of the World Sikh Organization, and just smart as hell. Harman gets into this. What was it, Johnny? It was for like 12 minutes or something like that, and he just kind of like took the mic.
We let him cook,
and we let him cook. And if you missed that on October 18th on Real Talk, I implore you to check it out. Just a remarkable perspective from Harman, who I've got a ton of respect for, and he calls out the media, he calls out the federal government, and really incredible stuff. Those are the types of shows that I'm really proud that we can do here. And so make sure you check that out on the 18th of October. We want to get into a couple of other things. You sound like you went down into a rabbit hole ahead of this American election last night, and I just felt like you were like bouncing.
Rabbit hole,
I don't want to speak for you, but I think
it's the vibe right now. People
we should get into what
obsessed,
resonated
right?
with you. So I want to talk, Kamala, and I want to talk about that MSG rally with Trump. JD Vance says there were 100,000 people there. Of course, MSG doesn't hold 100,000 people, but I digress. And an update on a guest that joined us in June, comedian Kathleen McGee. We want want to share that with you. First, I want to remind you that episodes of Real Talk do not happen without the presenting and supporting sponsorship of some of these entities that have just done worlds for ensuring that we can have great informed political conversation, that we can talk about exciting research that's happening. We can get informed insights into issues that impact Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Athabasca University, I know a lot of people look to Athabasca because they've heard about this online experience. They've heard about the AU advantage. But did you know that Athabasca University is one of Canada's top research universities? Whether you're looking for online programs and courses, professional development, or maybe you're looking at getting into an entirely new career, a calling, you can check out more about the AU Advantage and their research programs online at athabascau.ca. They've got some great tips and some great insights. And by the way, also that AU MBA. If you're looking at maybe bolstering your business career, look to Athabasca University. That's Canada's open university at athabascau.ca. Our friends at Fraser Brothers want to remind you the 1st of November, your next chance to save 15% off your entire grocery purchase, as long as it's $75 or more at all 17 of their locations. And Johnny, they also have another vegan feast coming up on the 2nd and 3rd of November. That's this coming weekend, of course, at all of their Edmonton area locations. So this is Glenora, Rabbit Hill. They're also going to be offering this in Stony Plain and Fort Saskatchewan. I can't believe the price on this, $22 per person.
Dude, it is a spread when you go
you know
in
what?
there. I don't want to be negative in this read, but there's a line, so get there early. Me and my wife had to stand in a line for like 20 minutes because it's all the rage.
Everybody loves it.
It's all the rage.
You know what? I don't think you could make the food for $22 a person.
Right.
And that includes the salad bars. They've got all kinds of great stuff. That's the Vegan Feast at Fraser Brothers coming up this weekend, the 2nd and 3rd of November. You can learn more at friesen.com/vegan. At Complete Care Restoration, they've got a quarter century, as a matter of fact, more than that, of experience in helping folks restore property and rebuild peace of mind. They use state-of-the-art technology and environmentally friendly methods. Not everybody does. To bring your space back to life, and customer satisfaction is their top priority. So if you encounter like a sewer backup, a flood, just some of this nightmare stuff, they're going to make it as stress-free as possible, guiding you through every step of that process. Do not wait for damage to worsen. If you're experiencing something like a sewer backup, contact Complete Care Restoration today and experience the peace of mind that comes with expert care. I also want to mention that our friends at Renewable Energy are keeping that "We're Hiring" sign hanging up for all 4 of their locations. They've got a beautiful BC location in Kamloops, a stunning new spot in Calgary, and of course here proudly headquartered in Edmonton. And they got a team down in Lethbridge, too. If you're a journey person, you got your ticket. If you're an experienced installer or maybe just an apprentice looking to kickstart a career with Canada's green energy movement, you're going to want to check out the careers link at Kubi Energy. That's kubienergy.ca. I love Positive Reflections, the first episode of this week. Kubi Energy presenting that, of course. The good news stories, the silver linings, an amazing group of volunteers from Canada, Alberta, and BC, helping out first responders in Ukraine. We love that Kubi helps us tell these good news stories. Show some love to Kubi. If you're considering solar, get a free quote today at kubienergy.ca. And at California Closets, you know by now, the first consultation, subsequent conversations with their team are all without a hook. They're all without charge, right? You've got nothing to lose checking in with their talented team of designers to figure out what they could devise as a custom closet, a storage solution, no matter where in the home you're talking about. I mean, they do beautiful stuff in like the living rooms and the entertainment centers, but for a lot of folks, it's more practical storage they're looking for. Laundry rooms, boot rooms, using some of that space up in the linen closets, or maybe even heading up the stairs. The team has ideas that will blow your mind, and they can work with any budget. You can check out the client stories, see how they've improved the lives of their clients across the country, in particular in Alberta, by visiting californiaclosets.ca. This MSG rally has got a lot of people talking.
Man.
This Trump rally at Madison,
crazy.
the most famous arena in the world.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something that's grabbed your attention. November 5th, obviously, I don't think we need to tell any listener to this show. Americans will be headed to the polls. But what was it about the MSG rally that was really resonating with you?
It's getting closer and closer, and it's just kind of like, I'm the same as everyone else who is an expert on this, only that I'm not an expert. I listen to them, but I think it's too close to call. But as the days have gone on, this week especially, since Trump on Rogan, since the MSG rally, I'm kind of swaying. And here comes the chat. I know what I say, but I think Harris is going to win, and I don't think it's going to be small. I think it's going to be decisive. I don't think it's going to be large, but I think it's going to be big enough that it'll quell some of the naysayers who might think this is, Russian interference or voting tabulators or voting machines. But little things like, everyone thought the Trump Rogan thing would give him a boost, and don't get me wrong, the numbers are great, but they're the same as every other show Rogan's done. He gets 40 million views on everything, right? And the other thing is, he asked Harris to come on. Harris said, hey, I'm on the road. But she said, hey, if you want to come interview me, Joe Rogan, I'll be here this time. Rogan didn't like that. He wants her to come to Austin, etc., which kind of to me felt a little, not bullying, but like a little bit like, come into my domain, come here when I say, but like, Joe, this is, a presidential nominee, you're kind of, anyways, but just how that didn't, people are saying, it gave Trump a huge bump. With who though? I mean, these people who listen to Rogan, and even people like me who tuned in, like those people are already going to vote for
What's the
Trump.
question we always ask? Like, did it change anybody's mind?
Did it sway anyone who voted for Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or Biden last time? I don't think it did. And then just little things like, we're talking about these swing states, which are so important, Pennsylvania being one of them. Like, you cannot piss these people off one way or the other. They are so down the middle. Like, we're talking 48-48, 51-49. And then at the Trump rally, of course, I know all our listeners have heard this clip, but, Rogan actually pushed Trump to have one of his comedians come out. The Rogan verse is huge. There's all these guys who are, they're not huge comedians, but a couple of them are pretty funny.
But as affiliates to him,
yeah,
it's kind of like the 2024 version. Well, people aren't going to like the comparison, but like how Jon Stewart launched the careers of a bunch of people. Stephen Colbert and the like.
Of course. Joe Rogan owns a comedy club in Austin. It's called the Comedy Mothership.
Okay.
And he has these guys out, and they do kind of like roundtables like we do, but it's all comedy, and it's just fun. Tickets are like $50. They sell out in 2 seconds every week. It only holds 250 people. But anyways, one of these guys, Tony Hitchcliffe, gets up there, and of course everyone's heard this clip. He refers to Puerto Rico. Well, I'll just play the clip right here. This is what he said in MSG at the Trump rally.
A lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right.
Now you can hear the crowd,
we're getting there. Normally I don't follow the national anthem. Everybody.
Yeah, so we're talking about a crowd that moments before he came on was raging, was so loud, and even I was like, "Wow, like, did they bust these people in? No, maybe they all live in New York. I don't know. Trump used to be the king of New York, as they were saying." But my immediate reaction was, dude, Pennsylvania is one of these swing states which has a very high population of Puerto Ricans, Latino, whatever you want to say. And it's doubled in the last 20 years, since 2002 to 2022, I think. I looked this morning. Their population has doubled. And you're getting up there and calling it a floating piece of garbage, even if it isn't a joke. And I'm all about free speech, and I'm all about, like, comedy should be no holds barred. I love Eddie Murphy from back in the day. I love, like, the comedians who said whatever the fuck was on their mind. But say that after you win. Have that at a Trump rally that's a celebration. And then, like, this is... I can't see myself being on Trump's team and being like, dude, and not being like, this was fucking horrible. And I looked it up because I was like, Trump after this has been saying, I didn't endorse this guy. They just threw him up there. He said this. Well, that's not true, because we've seen people who have been talking to Trump's team, and they said, yes, we vetted his entire stand-up routine. In fact, he had a joke in there where he called Harris the C word, and they said, no, take that one out. So they heard this Puerto Rico joke, let it happen.
He was going to drop the C-bomb at MSG With like millions and millions of people.
And then they said that's a no-no.
He made I'll be honest, full disclosure. By the way, another great comedian is in our live chat right now. Great to see Quick Dick McDick tuning in live from Saskatchewan. We got to get QDM back on the show soon, pal. We'll send you a note. He says you're bang on, by the way. Says Rogan should have jumped at that chance. But it wasn't, I didn't watch this, but he also made a joke about like black people and watermelons. Didn't he make a joke about Palestinians throwing rocks and Jews not wanting to spend the money to fight? Like there were some of the stuff you're going like, man, I get it. And trust me, like I love stand-up comedians that make you feel uncomfortable. I think typically like gay jokes best delivered by gay people, black jokes by black people, and the like. I digress. Some of us need to, but I just think like at a political rally, 6 or whatever this was, a week out, a bit over a week out from a major election, it's like, it feels like I mean, I guess, they either, sort of figured that the crowd and the American people were ready for a bit of a shakeup. But like, I just think like as Canadians, it's kind of hilarious too. Cause can you imagine a comedian like this going up with content like this at a Canadian political rally a week ahead of an election? You'd risk losing the election.
To me, I think they are. And I think Trump's team is a little, I think everyone who's kind of supporting Trump and voting for Trump has this idea that nowhere in time before have people been so motivated to go out and vote. Well, they said that back when Biden won, and it was so close. And I think it's going to be close as well this time, but there's a lot of differences. And I'll just mention Mason McCain. He's on Twitter. He's great. Go look up _Guntar_. He has a whole thread on this, and he says, one of the major differences between when Biden and Trump went up against each other and Harris and Trump is COVID and get out the vote. You couldn't go out and vote really in a lot of places. And Harris has been pushing. This is one of the biggest GOTV, get out the vote campaigns we've ever seen in the States, backed by so much money. We're talking about billions of dollars. There's going to be so many people who maybe never have voted before or haven't voted in 8 years because they just thought the obvious choice was going to win, who are going to come out. And I think that is going to hurt the Trump campaign because the people who were voting for Trump were already going to vote for Trump. I don't see new people coming to the fold. And then when things like this happen, Ryan, when a comedian gets up and says something like that, I can, on the other hand, see someone of Puerto Rican descent living in the States with their family, 5 other people in a house and a bunch of other houses in a community being like, wow, maybe we were wrong, and flipping, and maybe not voting at all is probably the one thing they're going to do, but maybe going out and voting for Harris instead. So I just think this was like, and I think Trump's campaign's been doing good. He's hitting all the right spots. He's doing all the right jokes, but bringing up this guy, I think this was the hugest. Can you imagine if this campaign comes down to like 2 states or whatever? Right. One of them is Pennsylvania, and it goes back, and Rogan has to say,
vote.
Tony Hinchcliffe caused the election to be lost for Donald Trump because of a Puerto Rican joke that you could have told after at the celebration rally. You know what I mean?
How about this from Mark, who says the entire American election is a joke? Why not include comedians? It's a natural fit. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of you are sort of, Ken says, Super Chat Ken says, I never hold any comedian to some kind of political standard because I choose to go see them. And he says, and that's why they don't belong at events like this.
They don't really. They really don't.
Tracy says there's a time and place for those kind of jokes. 1 week before an election just seems dumb. Virtuous Sloth says humor that punches down is not funny for sure.
It's a bad move.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they took a big risk. Justin says his entire routine, I don't know if this is true, but says his entire routine was on teleprompter, so they absolutely knew what he was going to say. Yeah. And Vamp says there were many Puerto Ricans that loved the joke. They left Puerto Rico for a reason. He didn't say the people were garbage, just the place.
I don't think you're on the mark there. And then just spending in general, and we've talked about the money that Harris has, and you think money doesn't matter? Like, just look at the Sphere the other night or whatever it's called.
In Vegas?
No, sorry, not the Sphere. The place in Washington where Trump held the rally before January 6th happened.
Right.
And Harris is out there. Here's a picture right there. 76,000 people are out there. He had about 50,000. So if you think people aren't going to come out, and people say, oh, Washington
Ellipse is the
ellipse.
venue.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is why would I say that? But, if you think people aren't going to come out, and people say, oh, well, Washington's going to go blue anyways, who cares? But if you think people aren't going to get up and get out the vote for Harris, and if you thought Biden and Trump was so close, I'm starting to think this won't be as close as people think, that it'll be decisive for Harris. It won't be huge, but it'll be enough. And I think it'll be because she abstained from, if I'm Harris right now, I don't even go on Rogan. I mean, I know people say, huge audience, 40 million, 50 million views, all this stuff, but what does she gain from going on Rogan?
Kamala Harris?
What does she gain?
She should absolutely go on Rogan.
She should.
100% she should go on Rogan.
She's not going to treat him. He's not going to treat her
You don't
like
think
Donald Trump.
No, but here's the thing: is you don't think she can handle herself?
Of course
With
she
Joe
can.
Rogan, she can 100% handle herself.
I just don't think there's anything to gain there. I just don't.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that. And but you know what? Probably the prudent move, I'm talking not politically conservative, but sort of from an approach standpoint, the prudent move would be to keep that candidate away from the Rogan
Stay the
podcast.
course.
But I don't know. I love when I'm trying to think of examples in Canada, but when politicians have been who does like Joe Biden's done it before too,
Sure.
and others, many politicians have done it before, where they kind of go no, some of they're getting heckled in the crowd and they go no, let them speak, and then they'll kind of have that interaction. Trudeau's done it as well. I know I'm referencing to progressive politicians back to back, but I'm sure there's more, obviously. But I respect someone that sort of thinks common sense or conventional wisdom might be that I should steer clear of this conversation, but I'm willing to have it. And at the end of the day, maybe try to win somebody over with my willingness to hear them out, with my willingness to speak on the fly, to handle criticism face to face. I don't know that, I don't think that in any way, shape, or form, wasn't she Attorney General of California or something like that? She's Vice President of the United States. She's a capable communicator. She's a formidable debater. I think that I'm not going to say she'd smear Joe Rogan all over his own podcast, because number one, that's not her style.
No,
and number two, that'd be a bad move.
She would hold her own, though.
She
People
could
are saying
easily
she
hold her
couldn't.
own.
Did you not watch the debate? That was live on TV. But what I'm saying is, I don't think sitting down with her, even with Trump's interview, you've got all these articles now, 32 times he lied during the interview. I don't think she needs 3 hours of her being picked apart this close to the end of the election. I think it's just stay the course. It looks like you're edging out a victory, or it's very close. And I just think the money they've spent, the get out the vote, the swing states, the little things that keep happening, like this thing at MSG that I think could swing a swing state like Pennsylvania. I think Harris is going to win. I think the Trump voters were there. They've always been there, and they've gotten louder. But I don't think there's become a ton more of them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Cheryl outside says 100% Kamala should go on Joe Rogan. The reach alone. Yeah. Justin Evans says Harris should do Rogan it's the exact audience. I actually like this inside. I don't know why I said actually. I actually like what you say, Justin. He says it's the exact audience she needs to speak to, according to Scott Galloway. Nice reference. Yeah, the Prof G podcast. I recommend that. He's super smart with Kara Swisher, by the way, as well. He says the young male voters, which have traditionally been Democratic voters, but in recent years have not. Yeah, and I think that's an insightful take there.
Those guys, though, I know who we're talking about, and I'm going to be nice here because some of them are my friends and they live here in Alberta. The free thinkers, right? But then I always say to them, I'm like, you guys are free thinkers, but you all think the same. You all have the same opinions. But I mean, we're on YouTube every day, Ryan, and I'm moderating it and I'm watching it and I'm seeing our videos and I go to other people's videos, and what I see in the comments and whatever is 80 to 85% negative. So I would say I don't think it would do anything for her. I don't think you're going to change the minds of those young males who have been watching Rogan for 5-10 years to flip days before an election.
Yeah. Lauren says American mentality would sound clip a Joe Rogan interview to death. She is wise to not do a Rogan interview. That from Lauren. So, wise Kyle figures that Harris will lose by opening her mouth. I just don't think that that's insightful commentary. I think that she's been killing it. But there's a lot of people that are making a great point as well, which is that popular vote doesn't also equal electoral college result, and you got to carry swing states and that's 100% a fact. We're gonna obviously have comprehensive analysis of what this election result means for Canada once it's in the books. Next week is going to be bonkers. You're not going to want to miss Real Talk. We'll be recapping the UCP AGM and Danielle Smith's leadership vote. I'm going to go on the record. I think predictions are fun and interesting. And what good is a talk show that never talks about what it thinks is going to happen? You think that Kamala Harris is going to be the next president of the United States?
Narrowly,
I'm going to say narrowly. I think that's a good caveat. I think that Danielle Smith is going to pass her leadership review with flying colors. I would
tend to agree.
But let's see, because there is an organized campaign against her. How successful it will be remains to be seen. I know that there's talk of all these groups and individuals that are looking to David Parker's Take Back Alberta coming out swinging again, saying the premier offered him a plum job, $120,000 or whatever to fold Take Back Alberta, refused to do it. So he's turning on her. Never saw that one coming. However, also a good point from those that are saying, you think that she's not going to get her own supporters to come on out there and combat all this? They're expecting thousands in Redder, so we'll be following that, the outcome of that, and of course, we'll be following the American election result as well. I wanted to update you on something, friends, and this is more just like real life, and we're a community here on Real Talk, and one of my favorite episodes of the year. This was just hours before our Real Talk Golf Classic on the 20th of June. And so if you're watching on YouTube, that's why I'm wearing a golf shirt on camera, and invited for a really fun conversation, but a raw and real conversation about comedy and cancer. My good friend Kathleen McGee. And I asked her how, with a really grim cancer diagnosis, she was continuing to tour, doing as many shows as she could. And I'm hoping everybody watches this episode. If you haven't, again, this was on Real Talk on the 20th of June. My dear friend Kathleen McGee.
I did all these blood tests. My tests were fine. And then they did a CT scan, and they found that it had metastasized into my liver, abdomen, and behind my aorta. So that was a shock. I didn't even know what metastasized meant. That's the thing, is I don't know when to stop booking. So I've been booking these shows, and I'm like, am I going to be able to do them? Because it is actually really hard right now. Talking for 45 minutes takes my breath away.
Of course.
But I found that I can do some comedy, and I'm still doing it. Like, I can't stop. If I could have stopped, I would be way more rich right now. Being able to get this out, it's so much better than having to keep it all inside of me. So being able to talk about it and hearing that people are going to get a colonoscopy because of me, that's amazing. Or that they're going, and getting checked out. Like, it's so good. I just love life right now. It's really weird.
She is a gem. Kathleen is. And the outpouring of support and feedback, the emails that we got after that show from those of you that are fighting cancer yourself, those of you that have family members that are fighting or have fought cancer in past, was really remarkable. And because of the community and family nature of this show, I just wanted to share an update from Kathleen's husband, Adam, who was with us in studio for that interview. They've just shared from both of them that they've turned a page to their newest chapter. Johnny, it's okay to show my screen if you want to know. It's my personal Facebook, but they've checked into hospice, and they say, although the idea of hospice can be daunting, we're elated to have additional supports and care as we navigate toward the end of this trail and the comfort deserved at the end of this tale. We never know how long we have, and still now we don't. So we will continue on sharing our love and laughter and stories until we're through. And they have a challenge for all of us in Real Talkers. I want to issue this today. As we wrap, we ask of you, Adam and Kathleen do, to start today. If you haven't already, tell a joke, share a laugh. They say keep it dark or blue. Give love freely and forgive when you can. They say there's more to this story, and they're going to keep us posted. Kathleen is receiving the highest of care, and they sign off with love. We'll sign off this show with love to you and appreciation for joining us in community. Make that phone call today that you've been thinking about making but haven't yet. I love that. Forgive when you can. We'll talk to you again in less than 24 hours.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer